In the 4 years I've been working out, I put on over 100 pounds as a natural lifter while keeping my abs the entire time. And that didn't come without a cost. A really large portion of that 4-year period was me prioritizing my fitness and my diet above essentially everything else in my life. I became super socially awkward, I had trouble in conversations with people, and I lacked confidence in groups of large people. And now looking back, I say with a high degree of certainty that I could have got the same results or better had I not been so uptight about my training and my diet and just enjoyed life more. You can get big without getting weird.
So jumping right into it, these are going to be the points that we're going to cover this video. Number 1, avoid massive portions. If you don't want to be that guy who's eating a ton of food in a public or a social setting where you probably shouldn't be eating, try to have frequent smaller meals rather than few big ones. Smaller meals also allow for better digestion as your stomach's not getting hit with 1,000, 1,500 calorie meals in big clumps. It's better to just have them small, frequent, and spaced out throughout the day. A nice upside is that you're also not the crazy person who's trying to down a whole bunch of food in one sitting. As for the meal frequency, anywhere between 4 and 7 meals a day works great in a bulking context. If you're eating 3 meals or less, those meals are often 1,000, 1,500 calories plus. If you're a smaller guy who's trying to get bigger, taking in 1,500 calories at a time probably isn't the best idea for your stomach. And if we follow the natural logic of eating 3 meals or less in a bulk, if you skipped out on even one meal if you couldn't get to the meal that day, you'd be missing out on 33% or a third of your total calories, and that's definitely not leading to more gains. Point numero 2, plan your meals around a busy day. If you know that you have a lot on your schedule coming up, don't miss meals because you didn't have time. I'm going to show you how to completely eradicate that. If your goal is to build muscle and you have a busy schedule, give this a shot. Grab a piece of paper, a pen, and then write down what meals you're going to eat. So meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, meal 4, meal 5. And then write down what times you plan to eat those meals at. So you can have an 8 a.m., a 12 p.m., a 3 p.m., a 5 p.m., and a 9 p.m. meal, let's just say. When those times come the next day, eat the meals at those times. Now, I bring that piece of paper with me wherever I go. That way I'm reminded and that I don't forget to eat a meal at a certain time. If I'm really gunning it, I'll set an alarm on my phone for each time that I plan to eat. That way when the alarm hits, I eat at that time. And you know what? This stuff might not apply to you. So let's talk about what you can do on certain busy days. So here's everything I did on a school day. The first thing I'd always do is get to bed earlier. Now, if I know I'm going to have classes from morning until night, which is something I had to deal with when I was a student full time, I would get to bed up to an hour earlier than I usually would. When I went to bed earlier, I was able to get up earlier. And so I could eat 1 or 2 meals before heading off to class. That way I don't have to cram all of my meals throughout a busy school day. Next, I'd bring a shake. Now, I did this pretty much every day when I went to university. I would just pack 800 to 1,200 calories in a tiny little blender bottle and then just put it in my bag and take it with me wherever I went. Now, this became super convenient. I didn't have any dishes, no Tupperware, no utensils to take care of. It was just a tiny bottle with some liquid. Once the liquid was done, I'd rinse off the bottle and then I'm good to go. And if I still didn't feel like having an empty shake bottle to carry around with me, I'd get a regular plastic water bottle, dump the water into another bottle, and then just put the shake in the plastic bottle, and then just toss the plastic bottle out afterwards. So for me, shakes were pretty much the perfect food to bring to school. Next, I'd eat between classes. Now, this is an obvious point, but if you have a 15 to 20 minute window in between classes, or just throughout the day, that time should be spent eating. Don't try to do a bunch of other different projects. If you know you have to get a meal down, take the time, sit down, and eat the meal. Fourth, I would purposely bring quiet and portable meals. Now, if I'm in class, I don't want any crunches or super loud slurps, so I'd bring foods that were both quiet and concealable, like the shake. I don't want to make a lot of noise, and if I can bring it anywhere, that's a plus. 5, if you're driving to school, bring a cooler box. Now, I was fortunate enough to have my car. As soon as I got my license, I was driving to high school and university. So whenever I had dead space in between my classes, I'd go back to my car, back to the cooler, grab a cold refrigerated meal, and then go eat it. This is the exact cooler that I used all throughout school. And so it's this Coleman cooler. It's nice because it has a handheld handle, so I don't have to carry it by the box itself. Then I just flip up the lid and then put my meals in with the ice packs, leave it in the back of my car, and then I'm good to go for the entire day. Next, a meeting day. If I needed to be dialed in for not one, but multiple meetings or multiple conferences in a single day. And here's how I handle it. Figure out when each meeting is going to happen, for how long, eat in between. Or, like I said, wake up earlier, get to bed on time so that you can wake up earlier, get a head start on your meals. That way you're not forced to cram the meals together and potentially have your meals bleed into the meeting or vice versa. 3, Bring a shake, but do it in a mug. So think of an insulated mug like a Yeti mug or some sort of professional looking bottle, preferably not something like this. You want to have something that doesn't scream not professional if you're in a professional setting. The thing with the mug is that mugs typically aren't transparent. You can't usually see through them. Nobody's even going to know that you're downing meal number 3. So hey, get big and stay corporate. Number 4, I carb cycle. Now, if you don't know what carb cycling is, at least day-to-day carb cycling, it is when you specifically eat a meal with lower or no carbs and then eat a meal with higher carbs. So instead of having a consistent amount of carbs across all your meals, you're kind of like this. Now, if it's an overly long or important meeting, then I have a meal that's loaded with carbs so that I can keep up my energy. This goes for morning meetings as well. The last thing you want during an event is to be down on all your energy and seem super glum. So make sure that your carbs are properly loaded before the event. So if you know you have a big event coming up, probably load up on some carbs before. Or if there's a big time gap between now and the meeting, go slower on the carb intake and then gradually introduce more carbs so that the energy from the carbohydrates hits you as soon as the meeting starts. Point number 5, I brush my teeth. No one wants to see or smell what you had for lunch. Now, this is not a bulking or muscle building hack. This is a social credibility hack or hygiene hack. So brush your teeth before you get into the meeting. Nobody wants to see the chicken and rice that you just downed 20 minutes ago. If it's a travel day, if I know I'm going to be on a road trip or a long flight, here's what I do. The unequivocal number 1, get to bed on time. Now, you're probably noticing that there's a bit of a trend going on with getting to bed earlier and a successful bulk. I have an entire video covering every single thing that I do to get better sleep for better gains. And so I'm not going to go too deep into it here, but yeah, get to bed. The reason why getting good sleep before a travel day is so important is that you don't want to be tired for a long drive. And you especially don't want to be rushed getting out of the house, going on the road trip, going to the airport, and missing meals because you don't have time to eat and get ready. So go to bed earlier, get up earlier. That way you can get the meals in and get out on time stress-free. When I'm on the road, liquid calories are everything. A shake with a straw, absolute lifesaver. If I have something to drink where I don't have to worry about using both my hands to now eat the food, if I can just hold the shake with the straw in hand and then drive at the same time, I'm good. When I'm on the plane, I don't do any shakes. And that's because airport security doesn't typically allow you to take containers of liquid that are over 100 milliliters. And so sandwiches, baked goods, anything that is easy to eat, high calories, that doesn't cause a big mess or isn't super loud is always good for a plane. And so muffins, donuts, bagels, all that is green lit if we're going on a plane. Also, make sure that they're easily accessible by airport security in case you get stopped in the x-ray or the bag check, because you don't want to have to root through your bag to get the certain food item. And so leave it at the top of the suitcase, leave it where it's easily accessible. As for stimulants and sedatives, whenever I'm boarding a plane and I want to stay awake, I want to get work done, I'll take a coffee or I'll take a caffeine supplement half an hour before I board the plane. That way I'm awake. If I want to fall asleep, then I'll pop some melatonin half an hour before. When you're on the road, sedatives are not an option, unfortunately. You can't be driving 80 miles per hour and then sleeping on the wheel. That's going to be a huge problem. And so I always keep caffeine close by while I'm driving. That could be a coffee, an energy drink. It doesn't have to be caffeine necessarily, but something that's going to keep me awake throughout the ride. And so whatever situation that you're looking to take on, make sure that you have a stimulant or a sedative to help you out. If it's a social event or a party night, somewhere where there's a lot of people, it's going to be a big crowd, and you don't want to be that one guy that's having to down a meal, here's what I do. The first thing I do is get all of my meals in before I leave. And you know damn well that you're not eating meal number 4 or 5 when you get back from the bar at 3 a.m. So make sure you get all of those meals in before you go out. And the way to do that is get to bed earlier. Surprise, once again. Up to an hour earlier than I usually would. That way I can get up tomorrow. I have a head start on the meals. And so that way I can eat everything that I need to eat on time before I leave. That way I'm not missing calories and I'm not missing any social events. And real quick, getting to bed earlier is not something that you just do the night before a big event. It's something you do day after day. You don't want to waste tomorrow for the fun you would have had tonight. So get to bed on time, get up on time. That way you don't have to cram your meals in the day after a big event. Speaking of wasting, don't get wasted. Drinking is fine, but drunk is not. Especially if there's a chance that you throw up, you don't want to lose all the food, all the calories, all the electrolytes, and then have to do it all again the next day. That's not good. So drink to your heart's content, but don't lose yourself in the process. Lastly, I'll carb cycle. Now, most parties are in the evening or at night, so I'll go light on the carbs in my meals throughout the day, and then load up on carbs right before I leave for the party or event. The The reason why I load up my carbs this way is that I get a quick hit of energy before I go out, and I look bigger because I'm eating carbs, I'm holding on to more water, so I look bigger, I look more swole when I go out. That's a huge plus for me. Third thing I do is eat low maintenance meals. Now you're probably wondering what a low maintenance meal is. It is a meal that doesn't require a lot of effort, a lot of chewing. It's not super loud. It doesn't inconvenience other people. It's a meal you can get down quickly, no fuss, no muss. For me, at least one of these points must be checked off for the meal to be considered low maintenance. And that can be that it's light in weight, that it's easy to conceal, that it's high calorie, high protein, or both, preferably in a bulk. They're not loud when you chew them. They're fast to chew and swallow, so you don't have to worry about constantly masticating the food. They're non-perishable. They don't stink. Ideally, the meal is resealable once it's opened. So if you were to look at like a can of Coca-Cola, let's just say, and you have your can, you crack open the can, but now the can's open. Now you have an open can of pop, and you can't really bring it anywhere because it might spill. It can get tipped over at any moment. Not really ideal. So you want to have containers, bottles, that you can have a lid, that you have a plastic bag, a Ziploc that you can tighten it on. Something to where if it's opened, it can be closed again. Another bonus is that it doesn't require a fridge or freezer. That way you can bring it with you wherever you go. Or if it doesn't require a microwave. Now these are both optional. It's not really necessary to have this as a feature, but it's a nice to have. If you want some real world examples, granola, trail mix, protein bars, shakes, depending on where you are, wraps, sandwiches, nuts, banana, avocado, and rice mixed together, muffins, bagels, baked goods, stuff like that. Stuff that is not an inconvenience to other people and is also not an inconvenience to you and your lifestyle. Number 4. Avoid being the loud eater. You don't want to be the guy in the corner of the room who's constantly smacking on food, making a bunch of noise. Nobody really likes to hear chewing or gulping of liquids. It's usually not ideal in a social setting. And so here's how I avoid being the loud eater. Point number 1, no surprise, get to bed earlier. If you're going to bed earlier, you're getting up earlier, you have more time to eat. Pretty simple, I don't have to run over it anymore. Next, we have small portions. If your goal is to be quiet, don't have a massive amount of food at once laid out in front of you. Make sure the food isn't smelly either. So you don't want to have some chicken curry that stinks up the entire classroom or the board meeting or whatever. You don't want to be the guy who has the stinky food because people just like you less. So if you have small, frequent meals, these are meals that can be brought anywhere, easy to carry in hand, don't make a lot of noise, and they're good for your digestion. To me, that's a win-win all around. Next, we want little to no packaging. This is where shakes are critical. I don't want to deal with these crinkly, plasticky noises. Get the food down fast. If you're going to chew and be loud, then chew. Don't do anything else. Some people don't like the sound of chewing, but everybody hates the sound of chewing for 30 minutes, an hour. Nobody wants to deal with this for an extended period of time. If you're going to eat and make a lot of noise, just do it quickly. Finally, I don't want any metal on glass. Now, what I mean by this is having, let's just say, a metal spoon and a glass container. You know you're going to be smacking the spoon around the edges of the container trying to get the last bit of food. Nobody wants to deal with that. Get a plastic utensil instead. But you know what? A lot of the tips in this video are to stop inconveniencing other people and to prevent yourself from being the center of attention, to prevent yourself from being judged. After a while, that stuff won't matter to you anymore. If it's an important event where I shouldn't really eat, then I will use all the points in this video to structure my meals around the event. If it's anything that isn't a critical meeting or a major social event or an important date, I eat regardless of what people say or what they think. People actually respect it. If you tell them that what you're doing is leading you to a greater goal, most people will rally around you. They want to support you through the process. And if their opinions still change what you do, know that in 1,000 years, they'll be dead, and so will you. So you may as well do what you want to do today. For goals such as building an exceptional physique or strength or having stronger character, it requires somebody who's willing to do different things than what everybody else is doing. Because no matter how hardworking you say you are, if you do the same things as everybody else does, you'll end up with the same things everybody else has. And if you don't want those things, then by definition, you cannot do the same inputs that they do to get a different result. You must do different inputs. And I'm talking from experiencing this myself. Don't stress about what other people say. It's not that deep. Once people see what you're doing is working, their applause only gets louder. And so if you're going for a goal, it doesn't even have to be building muscle. It could be any goal. If you're going for a big goal, you're probably not going to get it on the first go. You'll fail a bunch of times. And so everyone will always think you're crazy or you're out of your mind or this goal is too amorphous. It cannot be achieved. Everyone thinks you're crazy until it works. So don't sweat the things they say now because they're probably going to be right. And who knows? Some people may even follow you on your journey and try it themselves. And to me, that is the definition of greatness. If you can inspire somebody to attempt something that they otherwise wouldn't have tried on their own, you won. And if all of this still wasn't convincing enough for you to keep eating, here's a step-by-step breakdown of my exact response when people make comments about my eating. Step 1 of doing the thing. Accept that people will make comments about you. It's just a fact of life at this point. Step 2, keep eating. Step 3, when people make comments or question why it is what you do, don't get pissy with them. Answer politely. Tell them that this leads to your greater goal, and if they ask for an explanation, give them one. Tell them why you're doing this. When people would ask me why I was pursuing this goal, I would give them a big, grandiose explanation of my life story and how I struggled and how I was hurt and how I'm using this goal to change that around for myself. They don't need to hear all that. Just keep the explanation nice and short because you're going to have multiple people asking you for the same answer. Step 4, keep eating. Step 5, achieve your goals. Get closer to being the man that you want to be through repetition of consistent actions that incrementally lead you to where you want to go. P.S. You don't need to be a weirdo on purpose. If nothing else, do not become a gym cell. Don't become the guy whose entire life revolves around his training and his diet and who's a weirdo about it. Maintain good relationships, conversations, etiquette, and hygiene as much as you possibly can. And you know what? Sometimes one of these things is going to have to get given up in order for you to get to where you want to go. Hopefully it's not hygiene because you should probably still be showering. In all seriousness, sometimes your relationships might dwindle a little bit because you're spending so much time trying to achieve this goal. Or maybe you're so exhausted from working that you're just not as active in conversation. Sometimes you're a little bit more socially awkward, and that's just part of the process. You're not going to have the dial cranked to 11 on every aspect of your life. Sometimes some things must be given up in order for other things to prosper. Over time, people will see what you're doing and the results you're getting, and they'll see that it's working. And some of those people may even adopt your tendencies. This is where you start to build your own small community or a friend group of people that are similar to you or going for a goal themselves. Achievement is super important, but if you uplift nobody in the process and you smell bad, did you really win? Okay, so with all the confidence, brouhaha out of the way, here's how I pack light for long days. This is what I did during my full-time job or my full days of school when I had classes till morning till night. These are all the things that I did in order to get all the meals in. So like I said, I drove to school, and so I kept a cooler box with ice packs in the back of my car and then just filled it with meals. I'd go back to the car to grab my meal. Having access to a microwave for me was crucial because a lot of my containers were Tupperware, and so I didn't really want to eat chicken and rice and veggies ice cold. And so I'd grab the meal from the cooler, bring it to the microwave, and then I'd be good to go. I'd also bring a cooler bag, so not a cooler box, but a bag. I did this throughout all of my full-time jobs. So I'd have the cooler bag on the ground in an office somewhere, or I'd take the meals out of the cooler bag and put them in the company fridge. This M&M cooler was a godsend for me. It had a strap, so I didn't have to carry a big box with me in hand. I could just toss it over my shoulder and I was good to go. It was insulated, so I could hold all the ice packs, all the meals. It's got a zipper, so it closes, which is nice convenience. And it's super bright, so it's pretty hard to lose something that's bright orange. So if you're someone who doesn't have a car to put the cooler box in, or you're constantly on the move and you need your food at the ready at all times, a cooler bag is the way. And I get it, your boss doesn't care that you're bulking up, that you have to eat these meals at these times. I understand. And so when I was working, I would take one big bite and then go back to work. Once I swallowed that big bite, I would go and take another big bite and then repeat that process until the meal was done. Now I was in a number of jobs. I was doing fast food, sales, service jobs, hands-on labor jobs. And so if I couldn't directly take a big bite, because let's just say if I'm in a sales context, I can't go talk to a customer with a mouthful of food. And so I'd have my meals not necessarily in containers, but I would bring shakes, I would bring protein bars, nuts, granola. If you remember the low maintenance meals that we talked about earlier, that's what I would do in those situations. And so I'd bring those all in water bottles or plastic baggies. That way I can either discard the bag and throw it in the garbage, or I just toss the bottle back in my bag. With every single job that I worked at, employees, employers, managers, bosses, everybody made comments about how much food I was eating during the shift. But what did I do in response? I followed the 5-step plan. I accepted that they were going to make comments about me and that this was a fact of life if I wanted to achieve this goal. I kept eating. Whenever they did make comments, then I responded kindly and I explained to them why I'm doing what I'm doing and how it's going to get me to my goal. I kept eating. And then eventually I achieved the goal. The reason why I'm so confident that my plan is going to work for you as well, it's because I ran it on myself for 4 years straight. So if you accept that people are going to make comments about you on your journey, you keep eating, you respond kindly when they do make comments, you keep eating, you will achieve your goals. To cap off getting big without getting weird, Who cares what they think? If you're going to let William's thoughts, William's words, if you're afraid of doing the thing, afraid of achieving the goal, or at least trying because of what William's going to say, then shoot, man, I don't know what to tell you. Take the time to figure out whose judgment you're afraid of and then decide, is that person really going to stop me from doing this big thing that I really want in life? If the answer is no, I want to achieve this goal no matter what anybody says, then get them out of your head. There's no point listening to people who haven't done the things in life that you want to do. And oftentimes the people who make these comments at you, the people who make the remarks or judge you, they don't even have the balls to try it themselves. So you're already way better off than they are, and they're just shouting from underneath you. And you start achieving by accepting that to get a different result, you're gonna have to do different actions again and again and again. So accept it as a part of life. If their opinions and judgments still bother you, then try eating the low maintenance meals. Try quiet, portable foods, granola shakes, nuts, bars, any of the tips in this video to prevent you from being the odd man out. Eat whenever you can. So if it's not some crazy amorphous event that you have to be present for, take the time to eat. You don't want to have all of your meals bleed into the rest of your life. You want it to be a separate entity. And so in between meetings, in between classes, in between breaks at work or opportunities where you have free time, spend that time eating, because we want to achieve our goals of getting bigger, of getting stronger, of building more muscle. We also need to live life along the way. And I know you already saw this coming, but get to bed on time always. You'll solve most of the inconveniences in your life by just getting more sleep. And that doesn't mean sleeping in later, it means going to bed earlier. Now, I have an entire video on sleep, so I'll leave that at the first link in the description if you're interested. This is everything that I did to get better sleep and to lead to better gains and a better lifestyle. And so if you want to take 1 or 2 tips away from that video and apply it to your own life, I think it'll be really beneficial. Guys, that's everything I got on getting big without getting weird. Building muscle without being the odd man out. But sometimes you will have to be a little bit weird. Sometimes you'll have to forego certain events or do things that you otherwise wouldn't want to do to achieve the goal that you really want to get. Sometimes that's just the cost, and you have to accept that. But I hope that you can take at least 1 or 2 things away from this video. It could be a belief that you want to adopt, or an actual tip, or a way that you eat your food. Anything that you can take from this video and apply to your own life, I consider that a win. Now, I make these videos because I was really skinny, and getting to where I am, I made a ton of mistakes along the way. And so if I can save at least one of you from making those same mistakes and save you the years of inconvenience, of struggles, of lost sleep, of stress, of lost gains, all of these problems that I encountered along the way, I want you to skip all of it. And I want you to get better results faster than I ever did. So that's pretty much everything I got. I got nothing left to say. My name's George Tressiter, and I'm happy to have served you today on this video. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.